Dear listeners, a new day and a new story to discuss. Today, I'm going to tell you a story that interests me. Listen and write down what you think about this situation. I'm interested in your opinions. You know, when you think you have it all figured out, life has a way of blindsiding you, turning every belief on its head. Let me take you into my world, the world of Alex, where what you see is what you get, no sugarcoating. It was supposed to be an ordinary day, but what unfolded was anything but. Sarah and I, we had our routine down to a science. That morning, the alarm blared its relentless tune, a stark reminder that the day had begun whether we liked it or not. Sarah, she always had this way of making light of everything, even when things felt like they were spiraling. "Come on, old man," she jested, her voice cutting through the morning grogginess. "The world doesn't stop just because you want to sleep in." I chuckled, playing along. "Give me a break, will ya? You know I was up late waiting for you to come to bed." Our banter, it was our thing, masking the underlying tensions with humor and sarcasm. Little did I know, the mask was about to crack. Sarah mentioned her business trip to Denver. Same old spiel about big opportunities and can't miss this. I nodded, pretending to listen, while my mind raced with doubts. Why now? Why so sudden? But I pushed those thoughts aside. Just business, I reminded myself. The day she left, something in me snapped. Maybe it was the way she hesitated at the door, a fleeting look of guilt in her eyes, or perhaps it was the sudden realization that I couldn't shake the feeling of dread. "This isn't goodbye, Alex. It's just a week," she said, forcing a smile. But it felt like goodbye. And I decided, right then and there, I needed to know the truth. No more doubts, no more what-ifs. If Sarah was playing me for a fool, she was in for a rude awakening. I was done playing the doting husband, blind to the lies. I concocted a plan, something so simple yet so effective. I'd fly to Denver, surprise her. Not in a romantic gesture kind of way, but as a shadow, unseen, unnoticed. My gut told me I was onto something, and my gut never lies. Arriving in Denver, I felt a mix of anticipation and dread. This was it, the moment of truth. I tracked down her hotel, blending into the background like I belonged there. And then, I saw it. The betrayal, raw and undeniable. Sarah, with someone else, laughing, touching, sharing moments that were supposed to be ours. I didn't confront her, not then. What was the point? She was caught in the act, and I had become the spectator in my own life. Instead, I snapped a picture, evidence of the lie my marriage had become. The ride back was a blur of emotions. Anger, betrayal, but above all, a vindictive clarity. Sarah wanted to play games? Fine. But she was about to learn I played to win. My plan was simple: confrontation, divorce, and a little twist of my own. She'd lose everything: her husband, her reputation, and any semblance of the life we built together. Sitting alone, the picture in hand, I didn't feel sorrow. No, what I felt was a cold, calculating resolve. Sarah had made her choice, and now it was time for her to face the consequences. This was just the beginning, and I, Alex, was about to rewrite the ending. You ever have one of those mornings where you wake up and everything feels off? Yeah, that was me the day Sarah left for Denver. It was a day like any other, at least, that's how it started. But there's something about the quiet before the storm that sets your nerves on edge, you know? The house felt too big without her, echoes of her laughter bouncing off the walls, haunting me. I tried to shake it off, diving into my usual routine, but my mind, it was a battlefield. Doubts versus reality, love against betrayal. I remember staring at myself in the mirror, the man looking back at me, a stranger. "Who have you become, Alex?" I asked him, but no answer came. Just the silence, heavy and accusing. That's when the plan started to take shape in my mind, a seed of vengeance watered by my own pain. The drive to work was a blur, my thoughts consumed by images of Sarah, images I had conjured up in my mind. Was I losing it? Maybe. But then, desperation has a way of pushing you to the edge, showing you what you're really capable of. At work, I played my part, the devoted husband, worried about his wife's trip. "Safe travels," they said. "She'll be back before you know it," they assured me. If only they knew the storm that was brewing inside me. Lunchtime was a turning point. Sitting alone, scrolling through messages from Sarah, each "I love you" felt like a knife twisting deeper. That's when I made the call, booking the next flight to Denver. No turning back now. The rest of the day passed in a haze. I was a man on a mission, driven by a need for retribution. My colleagues, they sensed something was off, but what could they know of the war waging in my heart? Home felt even emptier that evening. I found myself pacing, the walls closing in. Every memory of Sarah, a reminder of the betrayal I was yet to confirm. I packed my bag, each item a calculated choice. I wasn't just packing for a trip, I was arming myself for battle. The drive to the airport was the longest of my life, each mile a step further into the unknown. My phone buzzed with a message from Sarah, landed safely. Miss you already. The irony wasn't lost on me. Waiting for my flight, I felt the weight of my decision. Was I doing the right thing? Doubt crept in, but it was quickly crushed by the anger, the sense of betrayal. This was more than a quest for the truth. It was about reclaiming my dignity, my self-respect. As the plane took off, I looked down at the city disappearing below me. This was it, no turning back. A day like any other had become the day that would change everything. And me? I was the architect of my own destiny, for better or worse. Denver, the city where it all fell apart. You ever been? It's a nice place, under normal circumstances. But for me, it was the backdrop of my life's unraveling. The moment I stepped off the plane, my heart was pounding, adrenaline coursing through my veins. This wasn't just a trip, it was a mission to uncover the truth, or so I told myself. But deep down, I knew it was more about revenge. The hotel was nondescript, just another building in the sprawling urban landscape. Checking in under a fake name, I felt like a character in some cheap detective novel. But this was no fiction. This was my life, and I was about to confront its biggest plot twist. I made my way to her room, the key card burning a hole in my pocket. It was late, the hallway deserted, my footsteps the only sound echoing off the walls. Standing outside her door, I hesitated. This was it, the point of no return. I slid the card in the reader, the green light flashing, a silent permission to enter the world I wasn't sure I was ready for. The room was dark, the only light coming from the city outside the windows. It was empty, devoid of life. For a moment, I allowed myself to hope, to believe that maybe I was wrong. But then I saw it, the adjoining door, slightly ajar, a sliver of light betraying the secrets hidden beyond. I pushed the door open, my heart in my throat. And there she was, Sarah, not alone. The sight of them together, it was like a physical blow, knocking the wind out of me. My world, once solid, crumbled into dust. I wanted to scream, to rage, to unleash the storm of emotions inside me. But I didn't. Instead, I retreated, the images seared into my memory. The betrayal was complete, the pain indescribable. Back in my own room, I was a mess of emotions. Anger, sorrow, disbelief. I paced the floor, trying to make sense of it all. How could she? After everything we'd been through? The questions circled in my mind, each one a dagger to my heart. I knew what I had to do. It wasn't enough to just walk away. Sarah had to know that I knew, that she hadn't gotten away with it. But it had to be more than that. I wanted her to feel a fraction of the pain she'd inflicted on me. The plan formed in my mind, clear and precise. I would confront her, yes. But first, I would gather evidence, irrefutable proof of her infidelity. The thought of it, it was vindictive, yes, but it gave me a sense of control, something I desperately needed. I spent the night awake, plotting, planning. By morning, I was ready. I had a purpose, a dark resolve that propelled me forward. This wasn't just about exposing Sarah's betrayal, it was about reclaiming my life, my dignity. I waited for the right moment, for her to leave the room. And then I moved in, my actions calculated and cold. I took photos, evidence of the lies and deceit. It was methodical, clinical even. But beneath the surface, my heart was breaking. Leaving the hotel, I felt numb. The deed was done, the wheels set in motion. There was no going back now. The unraveling of my marriage was complete, but it was also the beginning of the end for Sarah and me. As I boarded the plane back home, I couldn't help but reflect on the irony. Denver, the city where it all came apart, but also where I found the strength to start anew. It was a twisted kind of redemption, one born out of betrayal and pain. But it was a start, and sometimes that's all you can ask for. The flight back home was a cocoon of silence, a vacuum where time and space lost all meaning. My mind replayed the scene over and over, each time slicing deeper into my soul. I had gone to Denver seeking the truth, but what I found was a reality so stark, so raw, it threatened to consume me whole. Landing back in my city felt like returning from a war, battle-scarred and changed forever. The drive home was automatic, my hands on the wheel, my mind 1,000 miles away. The house that once symbolized our shared dreams now stood as a monument to betrayal. Walking through the door, the silence was deafening, Sarah's absence a gaping wound in the fabric of my existence. I sat in the darkness, the images I had captured in Denver burning holes in my mind. The plan was clear, crystallized by hours of sleepless plotting. This wasn't just about confrontation, it was about retribution, a calculated dismantling of the life Sarah thought she could leave behind my back. The first step was the hardest. Dialing her number, my finger hovered over the call button, the weight of the moment pressing down on me. The phone rang, each tone a heartbeat in the deafening silence. Hello. Her voice, so familiar yet infinitely distant, broke the spell. Sarah, I began, my voice a mask of calm. We need to talk. The words were simple, but they carried the weight of 1,000 accusations. What's wrong, Alex? You sound serious. Her attempt at nonchalance was pathetic, insulting even. Just come home. We'll talk then. I hung up before she could reply, the finality of the conversation a line drawn in the sand. The hours until her return stretched into eternity, each minute a lifetime of anticipation and dread. When the door finally opened, her steps hesitant, I was ready. The room was charged with an electric tension, a prelude to the storm about to break. Alex, what's going on? You're scaring me, she said, her voice a tremulous thread in the thick air. I couldn't help but marvel at the audacity of her feigned innocence. Scaring you? I echoed, my voice laced with venom. You didn't seem scared in Denver, Sarah. Not in the least. Her face paled, the mask of innocence slipping to reveal the first cracks of fear. Denver? I don't understand what you— Cut the crap, Sarah. The dam broke, my voice a roar in the quiet room. I was there, in Denver. I saw you with him. The fallout was immediate, her facade crumbling under the weight of truth. Denials, pleas, tears, they flowed with the desperation of a sinking ship. But my heart was stone, unmoved by the theatrics of a betrayer. I laid out the evidence, the photos, a silent testimony to her deceit. This is who you are, Sarah. This is what you've reduced us to. Her pleas for forgiveness were like ash in my mouth. Forgiveness? You think this is something that can be forgiven, just like that? My gesture, a snap of my fingers, belied the depth of my scorn. The room was a battlefield, words like weapons, cutting to the core of what we once were. But amidst the chaos, a cold clarity settled over me. This was the end, the irrevocable conclusion to a chapter one once believed would last a lifetime. I want a divorce, Sarah. The words were a death knell, the final nail in the coffin of our marriage. Her response was a cacophony of denial and bargaining, a desperate attempt to claw back from the brink. But the die was cast, the path irrevocably chosen. In the fallout of that night, I stood amidst the wreckage of my life, a phoenix poised to rise from the ashes. The journey ahead was uncertain, fraught with the pain of rebuilding and the shadow of betrayal. But in that moment of utter desolation, I found a semblance of peace in the knowledge that from here on out, I was the master of my fate, the architect of my own redemption. You think you know someone, right? I thought I knew Sarah. But standing there, in the aftermath, the air between us charged with betrayal, everything changed. This was the reckoning, the moment of truth where all cards were laid out on the table. My heart was racing, my mind a chaotic whirlwind of thoughts and emotions. But my resolve? Ironclad. I confronted her, the evidence of her infidelity a heavy weight in my pocket. We need to talk, I said, my voice steady despite the storm raging inside me. She turned, her eyes wide with feigned innocence. Alex, what's wrong? Don't. I cut her off, the single word a warning shot across the bow. I couldn't bear the pretense, not now. I know about Denver. Watching her reaction, I saw the facade crumble, her carefully constructed world falling apart just like mine had. Her mouth opened, then closed, a fish out of water. Alex, I can explain, she began, but I didn't want to hear it. There were no words that could mend the broken shards of our marriage. Save it, I said, my voice cold, a stark contrast to the warmth we once shared. I pulled out the photos, the undeniable proof of her betrayal. Her eyes flickered to them, then away, the guilt written all over her face. How could you? The question wasn't just about her infidelity. It was about the lies, the deceit, the entire facade. Sarah started to cry, tears streaming down her face. I'm sorry, Alex. It was a mistake. But her apology, it felt empty, hollow. Too little, too late. A mistake. I echoed, incredulous. You call this a mistake? My voice rose, anger bubbling to the surface. This was more than a slip-up. It was a deliberate choice, one that shattered everything we had built together. I thought we were happy, I said, the words tasting bitter in my mouth. I thought we had something real. But as I stood there, facing the woman I no longer recognized, I realized our happiness had been built on lies. She reached out, a desperate attempt to bridge the gap between us. But I recoiled, her touch now foreign to me. Please, Alex, we can get through this. We can start over. The plea in her voice was palpable, but it only fueled my resolve. Start over? After everything? No. There was no going back, not after the trust had been shattered. There's no us anymore, Sarah. You made sure of that. My words were final, a door closing on the life we once shared. The fallout was immediate. Divorce papers were filed, our shared life dismantled piece by piece. It was messy, painful, but necessary. As I watched our marriage dissolve into a sea of legal documents and moving boxes, I felt a strange sense of liberation. I was free from the lies, the betrayal. But freedom came at a cost. The love I once felt for Sarah had turned to ash, leaving a bitter taste in its wake. The reckoning had laid everything bare, and in its aftermath, I was left to pick up the pieces of my broken heart. In the end, Sarah and I went our separate ways, our once hopeful future now just a footnote in the story of my life. The betrayal had changed me, hardened me, but it also taught me a valuable lesson. In love and war, the truth always has a way of coming out. And when it does, the reckoning is inevitable. Let me tell you, moving on isn't a straight path. It's more like stumbling through a maze, blindfolded, each step uncertain and fraught with memories. After everything that went down in Denver, after the confrontation and the cold, bitter end of my marriage to Sarah, I was lost. But life, it doesn't pause for heartbreak or wait for you to pick up the pieces. It mercilessly pushes you forward, ready or not. The silence of the apartment was the first thing I had to get used to. It echoed, a constant reminder of what was gone. But in that silence, I found something unexpected: clarity. The kind of clarity that comes when the noise fades away and you're left with nothing but your own thoughts. It was in those quiet moments that I began to see the outline of a path forward, dim and uncertain, but there nonetheless. I threw myself into work, into rebuilding. Not just my life, but myself. The man who had flown to Denver on a vendetta was a stranger to me now. I had been consumed by anger, by a need for revenge. But what had it brought me? A hollow victory, if it could even be called that. It's funny, in a way. I had thought that exposing Sarah's betrayal, that making her feel even a fraction of the pain she had caused me, would bring some sort of satisfaction. But standing on the other side, I realized it was an empty pursuit. The damage was done, our lives irrevocably changed. And so, I made a decision to let go, not for her sake, but for mine. Letting go isn't about forgiveness, not really. It's about accepting what happened and refusing to let it define you. It's about looking forward, even when the past clings to you like a shadow. And so, I focused on the future, on possibilities yet unexplored. I started going out, meeting new people. Not with any intention, just to remind myself that the world was larger than my pain, that life went on. And it was on one of those aimless nights out that I met Eva. Eva, with her easy smile and her way of seeing right through me. She had her own scars, her own stories of love and loss. We talked for hours that first night, not about our pasts, but about everything else. Music, books, the places we dreamed of seeing. It was effortless, a connection I hadn't realized I was seeking. We took it slow, Eva and I, both wary of the ghosts that trailed behind us, but also willing to explore what was unfolding between us. It wasn't about forgetting Sarah or trying to replace what I had lost. It was about acknowledging that life could hold something new, something unexpectedly beautiful. Moving forward isn't about erasing the past. It's about carrying it with you, letting it shape you but not define you. It's about finding laughter in the midst of sorrow, hope in the shadow of despair. Eva and I, we're learning that together. We're building something new, not in spite of our pasts, but because of them. So here I am, telling you this story. Not as a tale of vengeance, but as a testament to resilience. The road from Denver led me here, to a place of healing and new beginnings. And if there's one thing I've learned, it's that moving forward is the only way to truly live.